Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Halloween Hannah here. Thank you for tuning in. I am really excited about this week because I feel like we explored a couple different themes, but today is going to be very different. So I just want to kind of give a trigger warning. The stories I'm going to share today are from the first-hand experience of someone who believes that they were abducted by aliens and kind of their story and how this played out. It's actually quite a long story, and so I'm going to kind of break this up into sections. But I really wanted to share this particular aspect because I think it's very interesting, and I am very curious to see your thoughts. Alien abductions have been something that people have discussed for a long time, right? I remember watching that movie that depicted the story of, I think it was 4 guys, right, that got abducted. And I remember being deeply unsettled by that. And I think the idea of being abducted by aliens is totally freaky. Like, nobody wants that. And especially with all of the declassification of files from the government that essentially said aliens were real, which really, with everything else going on in the world, was kind of underreported. This fascinates me, and I really wanted to share this person's story. So the individual's name is Nathan Walters, and he is part of a paranormal group that I'm in, and he's given me permission to share his story. So Nathan, thank you so much for allowing me to share this. I think it's fascinating and terrifying, all kind of wrapped up in one. But I do plan on expanding this because Nathan has had, to be honest, a lot of experiences, okay? Anyway, but we're going to start kind of early life. So this specifically is 1990 to 1993. So Nathan says, after leaving Colorado, my family moved to Illinois. It was here where a lot of my experiences increased, and I also became aware of them in that I began to see, only I didn't realize I was seeing these things. Even at this young age, I was starting to fear them. An example of an experience would be an occasion where 2 Nordic blonde type entities came into my house one night shortly after moving to Illinois. In this experience, I was awoken in the night by the same 2 short, stocky beings that I had almost always seen. Sorry, side note, this is prior to moving to Illinois. These were the beings that he saw when he lived in Colorado. More on that later. They woke me up, and I intuited that I should follow them. They led me into the kitchen, where I was told to sit at the table. The back door opened, and a strange blue light flooded in. In through the back door came the 2 Nordic, 1 male, 1 female, both dressed in all black, wearing trench coats. They approached the table and sat in front of me. They used a handheld device to project images on the wall next to us. These images pertained to what looked like a large battle being fought, and there was a lot of flames and violent images, as well as glorious light and what appeared to be an army that represented good versus evil. They said that this was a war for souls and freedom. I awoke the next morning with bits of it still with me, and it faded like a dream until the next time it happened. So that's terrifying. Like, is this some ominous portent? Were they trying to warn him that this was eventually coming? Like, that's terrifying. Okay, can we talk about how not okay any of that is? And I think it's really interesting that what he saw wasn't like the typical, tall gray man. Like, they looked humanoid in nature, tall, blonde, Nordic, as he described them. That's very interesting. And I also think it's interesting that previous to this, when he lived in Colorado, their phenotype was similar, Nordic, right? But they were shorter. So I think that's really interesting too. Like, what is going on? So creepy. Ugh, goosebumps. Okay. So he continues on. But it seems like this is a pretty this was a pretty common circumstance, although he doesn't indicate how often it happened, but it definitely happened pretty often. Okay, so now we are in Wisconsin. From this timeline is 93 to 1996. So by 1995, we had moved into a new house in Wisconsin, and the phenomena moved with me yet again. Okay, so around the same time, I had an experience where I was standing in the front yard during the day in suburban Milwaukee. As I looked across the street, my eyes saw something in the sky. It was a big black triangle, no lights or even any seams. It was almost like a child's triangle block, but huge. I guarantee everybody in a very large radius should have seen this, as it was probably 3 times the size of an airplane. Almost as soon as I noticed it, I knew it wasn't anything typical, as it was moving very slowly. The next thing that happened was it appeared to be superimposed over reality, as opposed to being in it. It honestly looked like it warped the space around it just slightly. Now that's very interesting. Like, now we're getting into like different dimensions. Maybe that's how they travel. They can travel through dimensions. Okay, that's crazy. Do you think it's possible, if aliens do exist, that they traveled from another universe, or that it's an alternate reality thing? Now that's interesting. What are your thoughts? Let me know. As I stood there thinking this at 11 years old, I watched this craft turn on its axis and come towards me. It was over me a split second later, blocking out the light around me. As it hovered there above me, a young-looking female figure appeared above me, but beneath the craft itself. She was floating there in air. She was thin, Caucasian and blonde, with pink highlights and pigtails, but her head and her eyes were huge. This was the first time I saw a hybrid. The problem with this for me is how this was not witnessed or reported on by anyone else. I think they can target one person and isolate them, so to speak, making this sort of interaction much easier than one might assume. Okay, so that was the end of this particular story, but I'm curious what he's referring to when he's talking about a hybrid. So I'm going to dig into the rest of the narrative because I'm assuming that this gets explained. But so weird, right? Like, it sounds like an anime character almost. Like, how interesting. Okay, so this is super freaky, and it's so weird that if it was that large, it wasn't observed by anyone else. But I think it's really interesting. He mentions, you know, like them purposefully isolating people. I think in any circumstance, if you're isolated, that makes you more vulnerable, right? So super scary. And obviously this followed him, I mean, from house to house, from state to state. I mean, this is truly terrifying. I can't imagine having experienced this. And anyway, I just think his story is incredible. So I'm going to nail down some more details with him, and I will continue his story in another video. But I just thought this was very, very interesting. So thank you again for checking out this video today. I want to know your thoughts. First of all, do you think aliens are real? If you do, what do you think they look like? Do you think they're Nordic in nature? Do you think they're humanoid? Do you think they're big, tall, and gray like we've all seen in Hollywood, right? Like, do aliens exist? Can we talk about the documents that the government declassified, clearly stating that aliens essentially are real, or rather UFOs are real? So if we can assume UFOs are real, there's got to be someone driving that ship, right? I want to know your thoughts. Let me know. I find this topic so interesting, and I thought it was cool because it's not strictly paranormal, but kind of falls within that universe, right? Oh man, aliens. So freaky. Okay. Anyway, thank you again for tuning in. Please don't forget to hit that like button. Please don't forget to subscribe. Click that little bell so you get a notifier every time I upload a video. I typically upload every Friday. It's somewhere in the paranormal universe is what those videos will be about. I have a lot of stories that people have shared with me, and just a lot of experiences, and I think it's really interesting to kind of see people's perspectives on the things that they go through. Also, if you want to share your stories, please don't forget you can always shoot me an email at hannahshauntings@gmail.com. I will put the link for that down below. Anyway, yeah, that's today's video, guys. Super weird. I'm totally freaked out right now about aliens. I'm probably going to have nightmares about it tonight, let's be honest. Anyway, have a wonderful Friday, and until next time, guys, stay spooky.